I want to tell you, in essence, the story, because this film is coming before too long, considering the fact that I shot it, finished shooting it just a little over a year ago, so it's high time it finally got released. And so I'm promoting it a little bit. I released a trailer on this channel. I've released one scene from the film in relation to it, something that doesn't spoil too much but gives you a bit of a feel for what the film's like, so it covers all its bases. Whew, that hill was steeper than I thought. I need a breath. Again, need to exercise more. So, because, you think like, well, this guy, I did probably from late summer 2012 till start of autumn 2014. We're talking just a little over 2 years. I shot probably 12 films. Short films for the most part. I didn't do 12 feature films in a 2-year span. I don't know if I would have survived. But I did that. Then I had to take a break. I was having health problems that I found out was just a vitamin D deficiency. And then I came back better than ever, and I did my first real legitimate feature film. But we had all kinds of scheduling difficulties. It took 6 months to get the thing done. It fried me. By the time we got it done, I needed a break. And there was a lot of stuff happening in my life, and I started doing more YouTube stuff. And, what I was hoping to be maybe like a 6-month break turned into almost 3 years. And it wasn't that I wasn't trying. I actually started doing stuff, and I kind of was becoming my own worst enemy to a degree. I was really happy with how my first feature turned out, and I did what a lot of people do, which is I put a lot of pressure on myself to match or do better than that. And so I started coming up with a lot of ideas that I liked, but I would I'm walking down a cul-de-sac. What am I doing? There's no dead end sign. They played me for a fool. Is there? Does the street turn? I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with anything. Yes, the street turns. God, I'm an idiot. Idiot filmmaker over here. So, I honestly probably... No, this is a cul-de-sac. God, I'm dumb. I probably started writing 7-8 different scripts. Some of them I almost completed, one of which I wrote probably 90% of. And then I moved. I wrote it all in a notebook, and then was going to transition it to written page. And I ended up somehow either accidentally leaving it behind or throwing it away, thinking it was mixing it up with other notebooks that had a bunch of notes or whatever in there that I didn't need anymore. So I lost a whole script that I wrote. And I do remember the gist of it, but I didn't really want to remake it after that. But just a lot of ideas I liked at first, and then I kind of lost it. And a lot of that was my own ego, getting in the way. So, I finished shooting my first feature. It was called Runaway Highway. There's stuff about that on my channel too. If you're nice, I even have an unlisted copy of the full film. If you want to see it, I can send you the link. So I have it on YouTube, so I can do that in certain cases, but I don't want it just kind of out there for whoever the hell to see. And what was I saying? I had to get out of my own head. And as you know, end of 2015, when I finished shooting Runaway Highway, go all the way through 2016, I don't really have a new project set. Get all the way through 2017, still don't have another film project. It gets to be spring 2018. I haven't shot a film in like 2.5 years. And I'm like, God, it's almost like I don't even care if I like the script that I write. I just need to write something and make something. I need to get back out there. And I didn't really know what that project was going to be, but it ultimately ended up becoming You Make Me Smile, which is my most recent film. It's about an 80... As it stands right now, it's about, I think, like 87 minutes long. So a feature, kind of a shorter feature, but a legit feature at that. Excuse me, a bit of a nose itch. You gotta do cocaine if you're gonna make it in the film business. It's a joke, by the way, for those of you that don't have a sense of humor or can't understand jokes. But, anywho. So, the essence of this film, the origin story, was, it actually came, Runaway Highway, film I did before, completely nothing like this film, but I got the inspiration for it from the Reese Witherspoon film Wild. Now, just a general concept was inspired. It isn't like it's based off of that, because that would be just me stealing someone else's thing. But that kind of just gave me the idea of doing a film about somebody who kind of has to go on this trek or pilgrimage all their own, to kind of put their past or put troubles they've experienced behind them. So there was kind of a correlation there. Well, this film kind of was the same thing. This film, I got my initial inspiration from a film called King of California, which was a Michael Douglas, Evan Rachel Wood film. In it, when it starts, Michael Douglas is like about to get out of prison for pulling a heist of some kind, and he's fine with that because he's pulled the heist and I think he's like hidden his booty in a certain place, so he's just serving his time so he can get out and still eventually get that which he stole. But when the film starts, he hasn't quite gotten out yet, and Evan Rachel Wood is kind of taking care of herself, and it was this very interesting dynamic that I think she's still supposed to be almost a teenager. I think she's only supposed to be like 17. I only saw the film once, but I think she's only supposed to be like 17, 18, 19 years old, and she's like living in the family home, which I thought was really interesting because it's like she's this really young girl, barely even an adult, and she's living in this big house by herself while she's like working at McDonald's. Literally, she's working a Mc job, as they say. Look at this beautiful setting behind me tonight. It's very nice, and I need to pick up the pace because it's going to be pitch black probably in the next 30 minutes. But I got taken in by that idea of someone really young living in a big house by themselves. So I kind of took that concept and exacerbated it, because originally I was going to have it be like a 12-year-old who's like living in this house by themselves. And the original idea, I don't want to give away too much of the film, I'm just kind of showing how my idea originally started and how it segued into what it ended up being. The original idea was, there's this like young person who, for whatever reason, her family is gone, and she's this like, barely even a teenager, if that, living in this big house by herself. And she's just been taking care of herself, out in this, I wanted it to be very rural setting, so it's almost like nobody even knows she's out there and just kind of fending for herself. And the property becomes, in essence, available to be bought because people don't even think anybody lives there anymore. Like, again, her family's probably gone, and a person whose job it is to go out and analyze these properties goes out there and suddenly discovers this property that has a house that she expects to be empty. There's like a little girl living there. So while my film eventually developed into a love story between these two characters, the original idea was more of like a surrogate mother to a surrogate daughter type concept, because originally this person, her name ends up being Susan in the film, who's like this property analyst. She was supposed to be like around 40 years old, and the girl's supposed to be like 12, so obviously there wouldn't be a love story there unless I was a very creepy individual. So it was originally going to be more of like a surrogate mother-daughter type story, but I didn't really know where to go with it past like her discovering her, and then because then it was like the idea is that she's kind of this lonely woman that kind of has lost a purpose for her life, which stays kind of the concept in the film with the Susan character. And she takes this girl home with her because she doesn't have any family to go home to, and like they're going to sell the property, so she's going to essentially be an orphan, potentially homeless. And so it would be kind of like she ends up bringing this girl home with her, then suddenly realizes like, I don't know what to do with this person, and kind of how their connection develops after that. But again, I really didn't know where to go to after that kind of opening development, so I developed it into more of a love story. So I closed the age gap. I still wanted there to be an age gap there. I wanted two people that are kind of in different places in their life. One person is at least into... I still wanted her to be like around 40, but I honestly couldn't find an actress to really fit the character. I ended up lowering the age to someone in her like 30s, and I got more responses. What delayed this film longer than anything was I couldn't cast the lead character. You'd think that wouldn't be much of a problem, especially an independent film. We have so many actors around that are craving to get roles, especially roles in films that aren't, not to toot my own horn, but aren't overtly predictable and stereotypical. So it ended up being more of like, there's like a 12-year age gap. It ultimately ended up being Susan is 32 and the younger character who's living out in the house by herself is 20. Now, I tweaked that. Again, don't want to tell you because I don't want to spoil it too much. I want you to go see the movie if you can. So that was the adjustment that was made, but it still maintained that concept of, the one switch is that the younger person who grew up in this house, whose character is named Annette in the film, Susan and Annette, she hasn't lived there for a long time, but she still kind of comes and visits the property. It's, where she grew up. And so the twist is Susan's character is still going to set the property for sale, so it's kind of like Annette has to let this part of her past go while she's trying to kind of recover for a portion of her life that was lost growing up. And so, they end up connecting, and they're both, they both have practically no relationship experience, no love experience for various reasons. And again, they're kind of come from different periods of life. So you have Susan, who's in her 30s and is, pretty set in her ways in terms of where she's at in life. And then you have Annette, who's still only 20, so she's still kind of figuring life out. That's why I wanted there to be still something of an age gap. I wanted there to be two lead characters that connect with one another, but still at the same time there's a mutt behind me, that are still at different stages in life. And obviously things happen in the film. I don't want to give any more. I already feel like I've given like 10% more than I really wanted to in terms of what the story's like, but that's kind of just the basic background of how the story came to be. Then it came to filming it, which was so much different than Runaway Highway. Runaway Highway, for all the delays and how long it took and how stressful it was, I was still a guy that by the time we started filming it had been making films constantly for almost 3 years. I was feeling very strong, very comfortable, very confident, and I had just gotten out of this vitamin D thing that had kept me in bed for so long, so I was invigorated and juiced up and ready to go make a movie. And so things went really well on that, which isn't to say they didn't go well on this film. I'm certainly, even if they didn't, I wouldn't want to admit that. I'm trying to get people to watch my stuff, not think, oh God, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. But going into Runaway Highway, I was a guy that had been constantly doing film and really had a momentum going. You Make Me Smile comes along. By the time we film it, I haven't done a film for almost 3 years. So it's a completely different dynamic. But I started kind of gradually screenwriting it around the start of 2018. And I essentially had the substance of a script, at least a rough copy, done by like April 2017, and I was already trying to cast by then. And actually, I had written a shorter film that I still hope to shoot at some time. But while You Make Me Smile was like a 75-page script, this other story was like a 27, 28-page script. And I had actually already cast the lead. And then I decided to flip over to this film, but I said, hey, because this girl was, right about the right age to play Annette's character, so I was like, hey, so, I know we're kind of got the ball rolling on this one film, and I'm normally not one to do this. Like, once I say I'm doing this film and I start getting others involved, we're going to do it. I'm not going to rake cast and crew over the coals after we start getting them. But we'd barely gotten, pretty much casting her in the lead in this other film was like the only progress we'd made, and it was understood that we were still a ways out from filming. And so I was like, hey, would you be interested in auditioning for this other film? You know, I'm not saying I'm not doing this other one, but do you want to audition for this one? Because she'd given a really good audition for the other film, and she was right about the right age. So I was like, hey, and she held that audition too. So I was like, all right, let's do this film. Now this is pretty much by the end of April, start of May, that I'm already getting the ball rolling. And then I hit a brick wall because I couldn't get the Susan character, who is really the main character. Annette is a main character, but the story is really, the point of view is more Susan. And I couldn't get it cast. Again, it was this age thing. I was trying to get somebody around the age of 40. And I was getting a lot of responses from people who were more like 50, and I didn't want someone that much older. I wanted I was initially going for like a 15, maybe 20 year max age gap, probably more like 15. And then it ended up being 12, which actually I think worked out better. But I didn't want it to be like, you know, a 70-year-old dating a 25-year-old, because then you're getting ridiculous at that point, at least in my humble opinion. And again, it wasn't about having a massive age gap. It was about having people that are at two different stages in life, and you have to have an age gap for that to happen. So I was getting a lot of people that were a little too old for the role, and the couple of people that were right about the right age who answered and actually was interested in kind of just fell off the map. I'm not going to name names. But yeah, there was like 3 or 4 people that are right about the right place. They were really interested. They fit the character well. They had acting experience. I knew they'd be good fits for the character. And they all just kind of vanished. You know, stopped answering my emails. And unfortunately, there's a lot of acting talent. A lot of them are usually newbies who are like, I want to be an actor, I want to be an actor. And then when it comes to actually doing the work, all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, you mean I actually have to do stuff? That happens a lot, I'm telling you. Especially when you're, you know, an indie guy like me that you know, doesn't have a lot of money to throw around. And, you know, when you're an acting talent, you're not getting paid a lot, you know, a lot of people find reasons to bail, which to a degree I understand, but a lot of time it's just people acting very unprofessionally because they apparently didn't realize that if you're going to act in a film, you actually got to do some work and put out some effort. So again, I had to lower after like 2 months, literally like 2 months of trying and not getting anyone. I finally was like, I gotta close that age gap. I gotta open it up to people like, instead of having the age gap be like 40 to 45 years of age, I had to make it like 30 to 45. And I immediately started getting more responses, and that's how I was able to ultimately cast Susan's character. And finally we had the 2 leads cast, because there's only 5 characters in the film, and the other 3 characters you see briefly. So it was going to be a lot easier to cast those. And, you know, the schedule didn't have to revolve as much around them, because each of them we only needed for like an hour or 2. It was about getting the 2 leads and having someone to, at least 1 or 2 people on to help as crew, most notably to do sound and help with lighting. And we had one crew person who did sound and helped me with lighting the whole way. That was really what it boiled down to. There was practically no crew, but I had one person on, and she was great. You know, we'd never met, and we just, you know. But that was the thing about this film is, you know, to that point, with the exception of like my first couple of films, where obviously I'd never made a film and never worked with actors before, this was the first time in quite a while where I did a film working entirely with people I'd never worked with before, which I wanted. I wanted to spread my wings a little bit, but as a chronic introvert who gets really juiced up and kind of when I'm making film, I get my testosterone kicks up, and just everything kicks up, and I'm just jazzed because I'm making movies. That also kind of makes me kind of kind of makes me, you know, tongue-tied every now and then. You add that to, you know, introversion, working with people you've never worked with before, and it kind of can make the situation a little bit more tense. And I remember my first meeting with my 2 lead actresses. The whole time I felt like I was just babbling like an idiot. I literally left the meeting, and as I was going home from the meeting, I was waiting to get a text from one or both of them saying, hey, you know, it sounds like a good project and I wish you luck, but I'm gonna have to decline, because I felt like I didn't know what the hell I was talking about the whole meeting, and that's a big red flag. And again, it was because I hadn't done a film in 3 years. Everything was like new again, and the pressure was on. But they didn't. I even apologized, like, sorry if I sounded a little kind of ugh when we were having our meeting. So much was going through my head. It was my first meeting with actors in a long time. We've been trying to get this film off the ground for months, and I just was kind of just jittery. And they both actually understood. They both said, like, no, we can tell that you're really passionate about this, and we're all good. So we had to go out and film. And again, whereas Runaway Highway was, it took a long time to film, but everything was such a breeze. I was in my zone. All the actors were fantastic. Just everything was pretty simple. Even when we encountered problems, they were easily fixed. And here we go into a film, and now I'm kind of out of my zone, and I haven't made a film for a while. And I'm still kind of a little bit like, I don't know. I really don't know what I'm doing right now. And I was having a lot of anxiety that first day. More anxiety than I've had shooting a film in a long time, because, I hadn't shot a film in a long time. And again, I'm working with people that I've never worked with. Literally only had one meeting with them, and now we're going to meet for day one of film shooting. With people I've barely met, who I know are going to be fine. And I literally didn't meet our one crew person until we met up to go out and film on the first day. And she showed up and was like, hey guys, how you doing? And then we packed into 2 cars, and 3 cars, and we headed out to the middle of nowhere. The first day of filming was a lot of out-of-town exterior shots. We pretty much were, for the most part, loitering between like Estacada and Malala, which, if you're not from the Portland area, it's all south of the Portland metropolitan area, and you're getting out towards the boondocks a little bit of redneck country, to be honest. Even the people that live in Estacada and Malala, a lot of them will agree with that. But again, Runaway Highway, smooth process. But I literally did the math, took 178 days to finish. Because it took practically 6 months. And mind you, Runaway Highway ended up being 93 minutes. This film's going to be about 86, 87 minutes. We're talking like a 6-minute difference in running time. Runaway Highway, 178 days to finally get done. 12 scattered shooting days. You Make Me Smile, again, not as in my zone as I usually am. 6 shooting days, 2 of which were over 12 hours. I think the shortest shooting day we had was like 6 hours, whereas Runaway Highway, we had a lot of like 3, 4, 5-hour shooting days. Kind of, this is the day to shoot with this extra character, this day to shoot with this extra character, so on. 178 days for Runaway Highway. 16 days to complete You Make Me Smile, a film that's only going to be a couple minutes shorter. We had 6 shooting days over the course of a 16-day period. And so there was, like 9-10 days intermittent in there, and pretty much all those days I was working 8-9 hour shifts at my day job. It was so stressful. It was total guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. I was rusty as hell. We literally went out on our first day. About 3 hours into our first day of shooting, we have to film the final scene of the movie. The big dramatic climax, and I already don't really feel like the shoot is going that fantastic. The actors are doing great. I just feel like I'm not quite there. And I started having such a bad panic attack. Not really a panic attack. I was just having really serious anxiety, and all of a sudden I just felt like, what am I doing? I haven't done this in forever. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm supposed to film the dramatic final scene of my film, and I don't even know what the heck is going on. I literally almost just looked at everybody and said, I can't do this. And I'm like, this is going to screw with my reputation as a filmmaker, but I hadn't done a film in so long, and I was just panicking. I felt so out of my zone, and we had just started. We had so much left to do. And it was like I'd forgotten what it's like to do this at this level, where you are the guy running the show, which means you gotta be under control. And then as we went to film this final scene, and I'm like a few seconds away from saying, no. Suddenly, we're out in the middle of nowhere, so it's usually pretty quiet. There was like people parachuting or skydiving or whatever. And so we literally saw them in their parachutes, like way off in the distance in the sky, kind of slow. And the plane that they jumped out of, or something, I don't remember if it was a plane or helicopter or what. It was probably a plane. But that flight, that aircraft, was circling around for like 15-20 minutes, so we had to stop. We couldn't continue filming because we had a plane in our vicinity going, and planes, oh my god, they destroy audio. You'd think at a long distance away, very soft, you wouldn't pick it up, but it's blunt sounds. You pick it up, and so we literally had to stop for about 15 or 20 minutes, and that 15-20 minutes allowed me to deflate, and I was able to get just enough gumption up to say, okay, just keep going. It's day one. You take it one day at a time. And we were able to resume filming. And we got through day one. Fortunately, day one wasn't really all that demanding. It was about a 6-hour shoot, and the reason it wasn't shorter was we were dealing with, periodic planes and vehicles. We got through that first day, and I was like, the first 2 days are going to be the hardest. Those are the ones we have to be outside the most. We have to deal with the elements. Again, I'm not a guy making a multi-million-dollar film. I can't tell planes not to fly in the area. I can't block off the street we're on. Say, no traffic through here today. There's a film shoot going on. So yeah, I knew the first 2 shooting days were going to be the most stressful. If we could get through those, we were going to be fine. And I got through the first one. I also got stung twice, like right here. They actually got up under my shorts. It was a yellow jacket. And it bit me. I think it bit me and stung me because there were 2 marks like really close to each other where obviously I'd gotten hit twice. This is about hour and a half into the first day of shooting. So I also, in addition to having a lot of anxiety, I got bit and stung, so my leg was throbbing, my upper thigh was throbbing for pretty much the rest of the shoot. By the time we finished, it was finally kind of settling down, but that wasn't a good omen for, first day of filming. But again, we got through it. The worst day, though, was day 2, and I actually have videos on my channel. I did a video in relation to this, and it so perfectly sums up our second day, and it so perfectly, again, sums up how rusty I was as a filmmaker, not just being able to shoot, directing, organizing my talent, time management, scheduling, all that stuff. It was also a matter of knowing the terrain that you're going to be filming in, knowing what's going to happen, understanding all of the potential complications that can arise for you. Because again, I'm not a guy making a $100 million film that has a big set to do this all on. I don't have the power to, stop the world around me from spinning while I make my little film. So we ended up filming. Second day of filming was, we were in just across east side of the river from downtown, and we were filming in it's called it's got a lot of names. It's like the Grand Avenue East Side Historic District. I call it the East Side Warehouse District because there's a lot of the buildings there are still functioning as warehouses, but a lot of them are just kind of big, where it's a very industrial type area, and it was perfect for what I was going for. Even as I was writing these little bits we were going to shoot there early on, I was immediately thinking, we're going to film these there. And we didn't really have a lot of complications, except one thing I forgot. When you're working in an industrial type area that has a lot of warehouses or factories or storage facilities, a lot of product that's being brought there or moved out, you got train tracks running right through the middle of all of it. And at least once an hour, we had to stop filming for, per train, probably 10, 12 minutes. Because we had to stop the moment we started hearing a train when it was going to start affecting our audio. And then we, of course, had to wait while the train was there. And we had to wait for it to get several blocks away, too, because, even as the train starts getting away from you, you start hearing the, blockage, the gates going down, and that makes a dang, 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 dang sound. And those trains, those big cargo trains, they are loud as hell. And you hear those from a good distance away. We had at least 6, 7 cargo trains come through while we were filming, and at least one Amtrak train. And yeah, I videoed like all the trains coming through while we were trying to film. It delayed us so much. We literally had 3 scenes planned that we couldn't get done because, like right now, we ran out of light. We needed daytime light, and this ain't daytime light. So we literally had to bump 3 scenes to the next day that we shot, because that was already going to be the shortest filming day. So it was really easy to just stick those in there and still, you know, turn a 3-hour shooting day into like a 6-hour shooting day. And we were able to bump those. So it turned out okay. But I should have thought about the trains, man. So that was probably the most stressful film shooting day I ever had. And I had to control and conduct everything. We started, the plan was to meet at 9 and be done by like 5. And mind you, we started shooting in late September, so it's getting kind of dark. Like right now it's like almost 7 o'clock. So it will be a little bit brighter than this around 7 o'clock. We didn't get done then until, you know, it was like between 6:30 and 7 p.m. And we met up at like 9:30 in the morning. So we had a lot of time to shoot. We shot for like, you know, 10 hours. But again, we lost probably over an hour just dealing with the freaking trains. I was just ready to fall on my face. But we got through the day, so I knew we're not going to have to deal with that anymore. And we had exteriors to do the next 2 days, but they were a lot more, we could have them under a lot more control. But, you know, those exteriors, first 3 days, we had so much random car noise to deal with, in addition to the trains. So there was just a lot of stuff. And, you know, looking back, I did a lot of, you know, especially the second and third days where we were more in the city and you got a lot more noise to deal with. There was a lot of locations I chose to film at that, reflecting back, because one of the benefits of this film is once I got it done, you know, I realized all the things that I shouldn't have done that I'm not going to do next time. You know, it kind of clears the cobwebs out. So by the time we got to the last 2 shooting days, which were all interiors, which were the easiest things to do because we were in an environment that we could completely control, I was at substantially a better place as a director. I'd gotten through, you know, we'd gotten through, you know, some rough days, some of the roughest days I've ever had as an independent, broke, guerrilla style filmmaker. So, you know, I was already a lot more comfortable in terms of doing interiors. But yeah, the first 4 days were essentially exteriors, and then half the script, it was like 37, I want to say, pages of this script, almost half of it. We had to do 37 pages in 2 interior days. I was originally going to use the place that my girlfriend's grandparents lived. And, but it was going to be kind of rough, you know. I didn't want to have to ask my girlfriend's grandparents to like leave their house for 2 full days. You know, they're in their mid-70s. I didn't want to, you know, push them out of their own house for that long. And they may have refused to leave. I don't know. And it was like we really needed the location we were going to film in to ourselves. But fortunately, my one crew person was like, "Hey, I live in a little house. You know, do you want to film there?" I was like, yeah. And I remember, though, by the time we got those first 4 shooting days done, and we had like, I think we had like 3 days off, 3 or 4 days off, and I had to work my day job pretty much the whole time. I was fried, and I was like, "Hey guys, can we bump things back a day?" We were shooting exclusively on Mondays and Wednesdays. Monday, Wednesday 1 week, Monday, Wednesday the next week, Monday, Wednesday the week after that, and that was the plan. I was like, "Can we get Monday off?" I was just like, by Sunday, by the weekend, I was just dead. I was wiped out. We'd had 4 really tough shooting days, and it was just, I was wiped out. And then I had to work the whole weekend. So I was like, "Can we get Monday off and maybe shoot Wednesday and then the next Monday?" And then unfortunately, my, kind of just going around in a circle here. Unfortunately, my one crew person whose home we were using, so once we started shooting there, we like had to finish there, obviously, told me, I forget exactly what the reason was, but she said that were not, it had something to do with them going out of town. I don't remember exactly, but she told me like the house is probably not going to be available again after this week. So literally it turned into we had to film that Monday and Wednesday. It was like October 1st and October 2nd of last year. So finishing the film just a little bit over a year ago. So it was, we had to do it. And I just had to, like, you know, slump down in a chair, let my head flop over, and just get my fifth wind, because we had to go. And I didn't realize how long the days were going to be. And again, something you have to realize, again, I'm not the only one that has other stuff going on independently of this film. Everybody else working on the film had day jobs. The actress I had playing Annette, she was doing theater productions while filming this movie, for example. So we were all getting wiped out, and we had to suck it up. And we filmed for as long as we could on that first full day of interiors. We filmed for about 12 and a half hours. And again, it turned into like, you know, we have scenes that are supposed to be in daytime and scenes that are supposed to be in nighttime. And we did run out of daylight a little bit on that first full day, because we were going to have the two leads. Sorry about the traffic. We were going to have the two leads. All the interiors that had both of them, we were going to film on Monday, and then Wednesday was going to be an easy wrap day, because it was going to be all just scenes with just the one lead, and just kind of doing all the stuff that we had of her that was just isolation stuff of her in the house. Well, we ran out of light again, because we were trying to shoot like 20-something pages in one shooting day, and we ended up not being able to do two scenes. So the actress I had play Annette, we had to have her come back at the end of the final day. Here we are. You know, it's like the final couple of hours of shooting. We got all the stuff done with just Susan, and now we had to get these last few scenes done with all of them. But by this point, again, it's been barely over 2 weeks. We've all been kind of run through the ringer. We're all getting real wiped out. And again, because we have this film to work on and a lot of other stuff going on. People's home, their jack-o'-lantern is talking to me. I'm frightened. I should probably cross the street because there's a little more light on this side, of which there's very little left right now. And I could just feel there was tension there. The last hour and a half, 2 hours, and the last scene, again, I'm not going to try to give away too much, but the last scene we had to film was a big scene between the two characters that involved a lot of emotion, and, like, you know, we were all shot by this point. I'd been going so hard, like my muscles were tightening up, my back was getting real tight, which I'll come back to. And I could just tell that last scene, people were kind of stumbling on their lines a little bit more than usual. I could see the look in, you know, everyone's faces. There was kind of this, like, you'd stumble on a line and be like, okay, you know, you could just feel the tension. So I just kind of, that last scene, again, I'm trying to direct and coordinate this thing, but I don't want to piss anybody off. I want this to be done the best it can. So whenever somebody stumbled, I'm like, we're cool. Don't even worry about it. We're almost there. We'll get it done. I was just trying to back off the best I could to keep this thing from blowing up in the final act. And we got through it. That one Monday was, again, about 12 and a half hours. And I think the very last day, I think we hit 13 hours. It was pretty much starting at 9 and finished 9 a.m. and then finishing sometime after 9 p.m. So we did over 24 hours of shooting. Again, like almost 37 pages in like 24 hours. That's how hard we were going over the course. And those were the last 2 days. This wasn't the start of the film shoot. And we were all just giddy kids waiting to get our lives started. And then we were 80-year-old grumpy adults by the time it was done. We had to go the hardest and the fastest pace we could go at the end. because we didn't have any more time to use the house. That's how it ended up being, you know? I couldn't pass up the opportunity to have such a convenient location to shoot at, because it's one thing to have a house that someone has said, oh yeah, you can do your film thing over at here, but then you're kind of having to deal with, like, if some drama happens in their family, something accidental happens, all of a sudden they might say, oh, you can't use it now when we're halfway done shooting. It's like, wow, thanks, dude. It was really convenient that a person actually working on the film, we were filming in her house, so that we knew there was a lot more stability there. A lot more certainty that we weren't, like, I never felt like we were going to encounter a problem and not be able to get it finished, other than the time crunch that we were working under. And I just remember we finally got it done. We had our final parting of ways. I got a ride home, and I just fell over. Because, yeah, those last shooting days, we had like a 12-and-a-half-hour shooting day again, Monday, October 1st. October 2nd, I had to work like an 8-hour opening shift. Then I immediately had to go to like the west side of downtown, because I had to do audio for an episode of the show I work on. So I had to go out there and do sound work before lumbering myself back home, and then going out and doing like a 13-hour shoot on that Wednesday. But that's not the end of it, because after that Wednesday, Thursday and Friday after that, I also had to work, because I was working like 5 days a week at my job, my day job. So when you're taking 2 days off a week and you're working 5 days a week, usually if you have a day off from filming, you're going to be working your day job. And in the midst of all this, one of my friends got me a sound gig for a short film that ended up shooting over the weekend after we finished our film. So there I was, just dead by Wednesday. I had to go work an 8-hour shift Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday I had to help on this other project. And it was like, it was like 8-9 hour days. Pretty much the whole weekend was just that project. And literally it was literally like early in the second day, that Sunday, working on that project, my back just died. I'm a real intense kind of director and cinematographer, and especially if I have the camera tripoded and still and I don't have to touch it once we go action, I crouch, so I'm kind of like this, like staring intensely into the viewfinder at the shot and just taking in everything that's happening, so that I can really get a feel for how every shot's turning out, and if I want something to change, I know what it is because I'm seeing it in the moment. But you're also just crouching there and you're just jamming your lower back the whole time. And then when you're doing sound, you're doing a lot of this and and you're just killing your back. I could barely move by the end of that weekend shoot because I'd been just going so hard. And I literally, the next 3 days, I was in bed. I almost could not get out of bed because I literally had thrown my lower back out, and I almost couldn't get up out of bed for like 3 days. So yeah, it was literally a killer experience getting through that, and it's totally different. Because again, it's only the second legit feature film I've ever done. And even with Runaway Highway taking a lot longer than expected, we were giving ourselves like 2 months to get it done. It was like 1 to 2 shooting days a week. We're just going to ease our way through it. And this turned into, let's get the pace going. Well, one of the most important things was with so much exterior shooting, and the fact that we weren't starting till mid-September. Once you get into October, it starts getting cold. It starts getting rainy. Not right now, but the weather starts shifting on you. And we had outside exteriors that we had to film outside. And if we delayed it any longer, we would have started having a lot of canceled shooting days. It's like, oh, can't shoot today because it's raining. Can't shoot today because it's raining. And then they'll tell you it's going to rain, and then it doesn't. You're like, oh, we could have shot today, but stupid weatherman said we can't. So there was a sense that we had to at least get quick through the exteriors. But then it turned into we had to get through the interiors fast as well for, you know, the reasons I've already discussed. And so, you know, we shot an almost 90-minute film. You know, in the end, the final analysis, we shot practically an hour-and-a-half long film, a legitimate feature-length film. All characters involved, all parties involved, never worked together before. We had to cram the whole thing into barely over 2 weeks. 2 weeks and 2 days, essentially. And, you know, I was incredibly rusty as a filmmaker. We did. I don't think we really, or at least I didn't really pay as much attention to it. And now I kind of understand it a little bit better, and it really made me worried. I was like, oh, I'm so rusty, and this film's gonna, like, kind of not be good. You know, just kind of being stressed about it. But we legitimately, my rustiness as the guy that's guiding the thing, I kind of rushed the script into being completed a little bit. People working together who'd never worked with each other before, we all had our own busy stuff going on while we weren't filming. We were all pretty much beat down and exhausted by the end. Again, I was rusty as can be. We literally had to rush film it. We had so many issues coming up with trains and planes and this and that. And yet, through all those restrictions, we got the film done. And you know what? Now that it's almost done, I actually am able to kind of sit and watch through a rough cut of it. And you know what? It just turned out a lot better, honestly, than I thought it was going to. So that's the story. Now that it's officially, you know, dark out, and now you can't even see my face. Can that brighten my face up a little bit? But that's the story of the shoot of You Make Me Smile, which that name has pertinence in the film. I won't ruin it for you. That we finished almost a year ago. Bunch of stuff happened. My Mac had an issue that I had to wait to pay for, so that ended up being 2 months that I couldn't use it. I've had health issues recently that kind of kept me out of the game for several months. I've had a lot of YouTube stuff I'm doing that I admit I kind of pushed finishing the film aside to do. A lot of stuff happened, and that's why it's taken so long to finally finish the film. Just a little over a year, because I'm pretty much there now. And the premiere is going to come soon. My plan is to do a double feature with this and my last film, Runaway Highway, because the premiere I did for that ended up being kind of rushed, and I want more people to be able to see that on the big screen. So that is the shadow of my iPhone. So that is the plan for now, and obviously I'll be doing updates on my channel in terms of that happening, so you guys will be in the know. Anyway, thank you so much, and till next time, this has been Steve Poole, film director. Catch you later.